When there's something requiring skill, there will always be people trying to succeed without said skill. In the Olympics of the year 67 in Greece, the Roman Emperor Nero is said to have bribed people multiple times to make his performance successful. This happens in video games too, while not in the form of bribing usually. Starting as tools for developers to easily test different parts of their games, evolved into ways for players to ignore skill and dominate the battlegrounds. Now, for a long time, cheats were just an elusive combination of letters or button combinations that, from the player's view, were only fun to experiment with. Cheat codes have been a part of video games for a long time and are still used by developers to test their games. Originally created to help the process of testing a game, cheat codes help testers and developers skip parts of games, increase their character's health, and many other things. One, which has gained a status as the most legendary cheat code, was one of these codes. Up, up, down, down, left, right, B, A. The Konami code, first seen in the game Gradius for the NES, made by Konami, is included in many games, from games actually made by Konami to games which include it just to pay homage to the legendary code. The code gained notoriety not from the game it was introduced in, but from Contra, for NES, also made by Konami. In Contra, if the player entered the code in the title screen, they would receive 30 extra lives when playing. At the time, in the eyes of the players, video games cost a lot of money, roughly $80 in today's money. This led to kids getting new games only a few times a year. When kids got games, and they turned out to be a lot harder than they could manage, cheat codes were there to help. The influence of arcade games, which were designed to be hard to get more money from the players, made the games on home console also be harder. Luckily, people discovered cheat codes used by the developers and shared them through game magazines and by word of mouth. Finding something you're not supposed to find is always fun, and if it helped you play the game you previously couldn't, it was only a good thing. There's a fine line between cheating in games by using developer codes to make a hard game a bit more bearable and intentionally modifying the game to get yourself an advantage. While cheat codes were more a way to make the game easier for the player, cheating in form of modifications is more a way to make the player harder for the game. When simple computers with simple 8-bit processors were the peak of video game technology, the manipulation of games was simple. Players would manipulate the memory of a game before booting it to allow customized ways to play games. This was the time of games that were played in short sessions, like Donkey Kong, so modification didn't make the game much different. In these times, games were distributed by cartridges, unique to the console it came for. And with cartridge-based games came the rise of cheat cartridges. These cartridges allowed users to fix different things and modify games in many different ways. Now, before games started to be distributed by more universal measures, like CD-ROM and the internet, the line between mods and cheating was a blurry one. With the rise of Doom, made by id Software, and its popularity, came a bunch of mods. These mods were made less for making the game easier, but to create something new and original. Doom wasn't the first game to be modded in creative ways, but the popularity of the game definitely brought more modders into the scene. These mods are a story for another time, but they were a great example of how modification in games can be a way to create art rather than staining it. With id Software's next franchise, Quake, came the rise of online multiplayer. While earlier games did have online multiplayer, the customizability of Quake and the accessibility of hosting your own server made it a popular part of the game. Quake's multiplayer also brought esports into the picture and the idea of more competitive play. These facts were a great thing for games, but also brought more incentive for players to cheat. Cheats like wall hacks, allowing you to see your enemies through walls, and different kinds of aimbots allowing the cheats to aim at the enemies for you, started to rise. Quake brought the online multiplayer first-person shooter to the surface and set the stage for multiple first-person shooters that came after it. And nowadays, there are multiple different FPS games centered around competitive play. And oftentimes, the more skilled you are, the better your rank is. Games like Counter-Strike and Warzone are plagued by cheaters who want the status that comes with a better rank. Most of the time, these cheaters get caught and banned from the games they cheat on, but as technology trying to capture them evolves, so does the technology behind the cheats. It's hard to get cheaters off a game completely, but it might be possible. Nowadays, like in the early days, some cheating software for multiplayer games inject themselves into the memory of the game and modifies the game how the player likes. But there's also cheats that have different amounts of access to your computer. Different anti-cheats also have different amounts of control and different ways of detecting cheaters. Anti-cheats, like the Valve anti-cheat, work only when connected to a server using VAC, scanning the files related to the game being played for cheats. Other anti-cheats, like Riot's anti-cheat for Valorant, have a lot more control over the player's computer. Valorant's anti-cheat in particular has ring 0 access. It's a bit complicated, but essentially that means that it has full access to your operating system. This makes the anti-cheat much more effective, but at the same time you are giving access to your whole computer for a third-party company. In Valve's Counter-Strike Global Offensive, there is a small, hidden community of cheaters not trying to get the status by higher ranks and not trying to ruin other people's experiences. Hack versus hack servers are servers made by cheaters to cheat freely against each other. In these servers, the status doesn't come from your high rank, but from your cheats. The guy with the best cheating software wins. This part of the community is talked about less when talking about cheating. These people aren't trying to ruin other people's experience, but show off their programming skills and their cheats, which in a way makes cheating in games an art form. Now, I don't condone cheating in any competitive games, but if you decide to do it in an isolated setting so nobody else suffers. We are coming to the end of the video, and I would like to thank everyone who watched it. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more similar content. For today's showcase, here's Die in the Dungeon. It's a turn-based deck building game where you don't use cards but dice. Different dice do different things, and by setting them up properly, you can do even more. You can find the link in the description. Anyways, see you in the next video. Bye!